Well, welcome out there once again to my program. Always a pleasure to be here, and always a pleasure to have you out there watching. Now I have the tip of the week that I'm going to start off with, and after I read the tip of the week, we're going to have a segment of the South End Neighborhood Association film. I film that once per month. That's at the Good Shepherd Parish. The association meets every first Thursday of the month at 6:30. Usually it lasts for about 1 hour, so it's a good amount of time to get some information out there. So remember, every first Thursday of the month. And here's my tip of the week. This is I call this the prenuptial agreement. Sometimes it's referred to as the anti-nuptial agreement. I think that could be a misnomer. Prenuptial, an agreement before you get married. And these are becoming, all right, they're fairly common, especially with people who have a lot of assets. So if you're contemplating getting married, you own property, you have a business, it might be a good idea to have one of these prenuptial agreements. And basically what it says is that, I'm going to read some of the, first of all, the factors, the parts of the agreement that are very important. And basically it's to decide whether a prenuptial agreement is enforceable. The trial judge at first considers whether it is valid. The judge must consider whether, one, the agreement was fair and reasonable to the contesting party at the time of execution. The contesting party would be, at a trial, the party who is objecting to the prenuptial agreement. And at time of execution, that's the time they sign. So that's number one. Number two is the contesting party was aware of the other party's assets and liabilities prior to the time of execution. So before the parties get married, they should divulge what they have as far as liabilities and assets. Three, a waiver of the contesting party is set forth. Now, that basically is, it should be a writing that they've acknowledged, they've been told the property of the other party, so that there's no confusion later on. And that's in a case called Rosenberg versus Lipnick, and it's a 1970 case, actually. So, no, actually it's a 1979 case. If the judge determines that the agreement was valid at the time of execution, the judge next considers whether at the time of the divorce the agreement is fair and reasonable. So you're not off the hook, in a sense, once the prenuptial is executed. It has to hold water, we might say, at the time of the divorce. And that's a case called Austin v. Austin. That's a 2005 case. And what happened was, in this case, on appeal, the wife argues that she did not understand the agreement. So, in determining whether there was a valid waiver. So, the judge may consider whether each party was represented by independent counsel. That's another aspect. Good to have a lawyer on each side. Sometimes parties don't want to do that. It sounds too much of a, maybe, lack of trust, but it's still a good idea. And the party's understanding of the terms of the agreement and their effect, and a party's understanding of his or her rights in the absence of an agreement. So even without an agreement, the party should understand what their rights are without the agreement. And there's a case, DiMatteo versus DiMatteo, or DiMatteo, and it says basically, although not all of these factors must be met, each party must have a meaningful understanding that the agreement may provide for a disposition of the property and support rights that could be very different from that to which the parties would otherwise be entitled under Massachusetts law. So the agreement may not coincide exactly with Massachusetts law, but if they've contracted to not to do or to enter into this prenuptial agreement, then they can't come back later and say, well, under Massachusetts law, it could have been something different. So, all right, and that's a case in the last part of Esther v. Pechenik, which is the 2008 case. So, contemplating marriage, you might think about a prenuptial agreement. So, thank you out there for listening to the tip of the week, and we're going to go on to the South End Neighborhood Association meeting, and I believe this is the second part of a very lengthy meeting which went on for almost an hour and a half. So thank you out there, and I'll see you next time.
Somewhat, just be an added protection to those people who reside there.
The home, so, all right, so the home phones, my understanding, I'll confirm this, the home phones have been done because the address is attached to the phone number. The cell phones aren't because the addresses are not attached, so that would be more difficult to do.
Okay.
So that's something we could work on.
Right, we could collect cell phone numbers as well, and include those in with the home numbers, or is there a problem with cell phones?
There's no problem calling the numbers, it's attaching the address. So if you got a list of phone numbers, names, addresses, yeah, we can.
Okay, we could perhaps put that together, and I'll talk to you, Madam Chair, about that, and so we can do that in the near future.
Maybe there are folks that aren't computer savvy, they can get some help down at your office.
Yes.
I was looking for Claire, but she started her thing.
She's here and she's leaving tomorrow on a cruise, so
Of course she is.
I want
Of course
to
she is.
make sure we get this going soon.
Okay.
But thank you.
Thank you. Actually, one more question, Mark, while you're still here, and to Chief Lynch as well, and also to Mr. Gallagher. We also talked last time we were here that there were weekly walkthroughs being done, or patrols being done by police, fire, and I know that Mr. Gallagher is out there as well. Could you just update us on how often those are happening?
Our men go by on a weekly basis, especially the district chief's car 3 station at the Globe. So anytime they go out on a call on their way back, they try and make a point of swinging by King Philip. The other mills in the area, which are also concerned, which is the Duro complex. We've evaluated that the last couple of months, where every crew has gone through that, and we pre-planned the entire mill. And again, this is done on a weekly basis, that the crews are going by and checking on the status of the mills.
Thank you, Chief.
King Philip is checked every shift, so at least 3 times a day, if not more.
Thank you. Well, the police and fire, that's both just outside assessments when you're going by weekly, and every shift, outside assessments?
Yeah, I have my guys going there pretty much every morning, starting their shift. We're actually keeping a log. And then anytime that the police department give us a call that if they've seen anything, a break-in from overnight and stuff, my guys go right back over there to board them up. As the fire chief was saying, the Duro mills, we're trying in the wintertime to at least plow inside the yard to clean the driveways, so if there was something that was to happen at those mills, and as well as Kilburn, that they can get the trucks inside the yard. So we're trying to keep that clean for them, and we also do the sidewalk down on Globe Mills Avenue, so the kids can actually walk to the school. So since that property doesn't get done by by Duro, we take care of it.
How often are they calling you that there's window breaks or doors?
I probably get a couple of times a month. Yeah, you've got they're coming in from the pond area.
Are they getting inside? Do you know, are they actually getting inside, or are they just breaking their windows?
Some of them, like it's just the kids really kind of breaking windows and trying to pull the plywood off going in. They do have security there that we do have at Kilburn, and also at Durham. They have a security that they currently hired to watch them. All those mills, they travel between all 3 of them. So
is that something the city hired? That was my next question. Kilburn had security a year ago. Is that still ongoing with the same company, and that's the city paying for?
Duro is hired by their own company.
But Kilburn is
King
by,
Phillips, ours, Duro is theirs.
how often is King Phillips there, nightly, or are they doing rounds?
Yeah, they're, I believe, from 5 to 7 in the morning. And that's why when my guys come on in the morning, right around 8, 9 o'clock, they go by the property, check it out, make sure that the gates are locked, the doors are closed, and there's no holes for anybody to get in.
So are we hearing from the security the same that we're hearing from the police department? Are we hearing from the security of the broken windows and
Well, when
doors?
the security finds something, or they see someone hearing, they call the police department. The police respond, and then we're notified to go and board up anything if somebody broke in or anything, or if something was removed and they found the hole, we'll board it up.
Mrs. Rivera, is that security continuing until we have a solution to the motion? I think that is all my questions. Yes, thank you. Council President?
Thank you. How much does security cost the city?
I can confirm, I believe it was $9,000 a month.
Is that,
And
that's the
I'm
old
gonna
contract?
double check that.
Okay. So, when we talked about security last time, we were also told that this building was gonna be sold, we didn't have to worry about paying extended security costs, and that was one of the reasons why we were going through the process that we were going through. We were gonna let their contract run out. That's the way that I understood the last time we were here. Because of the fact that we were gonna be able to sell this building, and then the new owner would overtake the security
The
until it was
plan
boarded
was
up.
to continue it until someone else assumed responsibility.
But because of the fact that the RFP, nobody bid on the RFP, we had to maintain the cost of security. So we're essentially doing the same thing again. We're putting out an RFP with lots of limitations, and we're hoping that the person who's interested ends up putting a bid in, just like last time. So again, what is the harm in putting out an open RFP? If you like that, if you think it's the most advantageous bid to the city of Fall River, the bid that you have from the prospective buyer, then you take that one. And if that isn't the most advantageous, or they don't bid, there's still some other protections there for the residents of Fall River, as opposed to waiting to put another RFP out again. So you have the capacity to say which bid is the most advantageous for the community. So why not put it out open?
Well, councilors, if we were to only get one respondent, and that one respondent wanted to put subsidized housing on this property, we would have a hard time rejecting that proposal because we didn't prohibit it in the RFP
You could
document.
just say no. We could have.
Counselor, it's not quite that easy, because again, if you put in your RFP that that is an allowable use, and you can do it simply by omission, then if a developer comes in and wants to do that, and I would respectfully suggest that if we opened it up, you may get more interest in the property, but that's not what this neighborhood wants. It's not what I think our community would want. But regardless, if you allow that as a use in the RFP, and that developer comes forward with that use, you would have, I believe, legal consequences if you chose to reject that developer on the basis that the use was not something that you were willing to entertain. So we have to be very cautious that when you structure it, you're giving yourself the opportunity to reject the uses that you're not willing to entertain.
So within the process of accepting an RFP, you have to rate whether it's highly advantageous to not advantageous to the community. And whatever many bids, you could say that every bid that we received was not advantageous to the community and not accept those. We have the ability to be able to do that through the real estate committee, and we ultimately accepted every single bid. Well, not every single bid, but we ultimately sold all 3 buildings. So you can make the decision that market rate, or you can just say, hey, you know what, subsidized housing is not going to be appropriate, and just add that one caveat. But then you still have the capability to be able to have other businesses come in, or other company, people come in and try to redevelop this. Again, I think it's something that we should open it up so that way, if there is no bidder, we're not holding onto this building for a lot longer period of time and putting these people in a situation where they're unsafe. I yield.
Mrs. Rivera? low-income housing is not an option?
We would structure the RFP such that the city was looking to entertain proposals for market rate housing, commercial. I mean, it's pretty broad, but
Would it be
again,
similar to the RFP that was put out in September?
I'd review that again and decide if it needed modifying.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councilor? Any citizens input?
I see now, and I know there were a few people that wanted to speak. Alan Sylvia, President of the Neighborhood Association here. Mayor Correa was here 2 months ago, and again addressed the concerns and what Mrs. Ravish just mentioned, the issues regarding the RFP and the response. Of course, we learned about the demolition and the price. Immediately we thought that, I remember a time when we heard that it could be demolished for free. Obviously, that's not the case. At that meeting 2 months ago, it was very clear regarding the market rate and not the need for additional low-income housing or subsidized housing in that area. We are the most densely populated part of the city. We're already inundated with so much low income. Also, it should be noted that all, whether it be historic tax credits or any other type of tax credits, there's a portion of that for low-income housing, as is 20%, or whatever that may be. That is something that we wanted to have noted to be excluded would be low income. And that market rate, commercial, mixed use would be great. And that was the consensus of the Neighborhood Association at that last meeting. And of course, I'm very appreciative of this council, this committee, for bringing up the public safety issue, because it is our number one issue, number one concern with regard to that property. We know that there's a fire watch, a security company that is there. That's a huge 3-block long building. And sometimes the fear is that someone sitting in a car, occasionally walking around at 3 o'clock in the morning, wouldn't see, and we would have a disaster on our hands. It's always our primary fear. So, the first concern was to demolish the portion of that building and to get a buyer in for mixed-use market rate housing, and for the first time in its history to open up a small screen space to provide open space and access to Cook Pond for recreational swimming and so many other things that the South End lacks. So again, thank you for bringing up the concerns with regard to public safety, and this is probably the biggest public safety issue in the city. But however, we look at other mills. We look at Duro now. We have and you did a lot of that work with 61 mills in Florida. That's a lot of mills. Most people don't even think Florida would have that many mills. There are 61 of those, and some of them are vacant, and any of them that are closer than a few hundred feet to a residence is a potential disaster. So we're always very conscious of that. At the same time, I want to mention that at that last meeting we had concerns because there was some concern about doing an exclusionary zone. It's just a quick swipe of the brush and say, the whole South End would be market rate housing. We did a number of things. We collected 800 signatures to do that, stop that, because we did that. And if you remember, Madam Chair, we did this 2 years ago. And it was over the issue of the Wixon School, now the charter school. We had this issue with so many vacancies in departments, and we're going to be building more, putting in more market rate, more units. There's huge 2/3 of the city that's already designated inclusionary zone, market rate housing. We want people in our neighborhoods to be able to say, no, I don't want that particular thing there, that's why we have a zoning board. If not, get rid of the zoning board. If we're gonna make inclusionary zones for everything and whatever. But, again, I wanna thank you for bringing those issues up. Thanks very much.
Representative, I just wanted to comment on that. I know the administration has been before you several times, and it sounds like with the, this new developer, they might be before you in April. For that, they said they have a presentation late March, April, they might be before this, maybe again in April.
End of April,
Yes, you
possibly.
mean the new developer?
Yes.
Yes, we had tried to get it even for this meeting, as you know, Representative, but they're not ready with their schematics. They wanted to have some visuals to actually be able to show people what they're planning. So it could be late March, or maybe you may decide to do it at your April meeting. But you did express an interest in doing a
Yes.
special meeting if necessary
Yes,
to
we decided
accelerate the
we
time.
would have a special meeting. We would call a special emergency meeting to review with the folks in South End what was planned by that developer.
I just want the South End neighborhood to know that the folks that live around this mill, that between the administration and this public safety committee coming here, this is our second time here, and I know they've been here 3, and they're going to be here another time, so this isn't anything that anyone is forgetting about.
Absolutely not. And, all of you have toured that building with me. And I'm sure you have been very attentive to the issues and the concerns. This entire public safety committee has gone. I don't know of too many meetings that you've had where the issue of mills or the King Philip Mill in particular had not come up in your agenda. So we appreciate that, and there's been a lot of detailed work that went into the mill information and collecting that information. We thank you.
And there's one more thing that you pointed out, the fireworks, that was at 3 in the morning, and they were on one side of the building and not the other, and it brings me back to something that Kara said. Maybe, I think that was the reason we wanted to do that, section of the city that would meet that all-call, the roll-call, or the reverse 911, so that we didn't wake up everybody in the city at
Yes.
something like that was to happen at 3 a.m.
It'd also be a good test for public safety issues to do that. And I know we talked about this. In case in the future we have an area where there's a potential crisis, where we could notify people in that area alone and not wake everyone else up at 3 in the morning. But I know, Chief, and we've discussed some of this about evacuation and some of those things that we would have to move people quickly if that should ever happen, God forbid. But it's on our minds always because it's been such an issue for such a long time. Thank you.
Name and address for the record.
My name is Michelle Dion, 5 Byron Street in the south end of the city. I'm a taxpayer in the city. Unlike some, I haven't watched these meetings from afar. I've been here. In terms of some of the remarks that were made, the only reason I believe, and I definitely speak for myself, that if you ask multiple questions, you get different answers is because what we really would have wanted, we can't have. If you ask the South End residents, would you like this mill completely demolished, a beautiful park put in, water access, canoes and kayaks? I bet you they'd all raise their hands and say yes. But we're realists. We realize the city needs funds, they need taxes, but we're trying to compromise. So we're okay with the mixed use, and we're okay with different types of housing. And if we have to, instead of having single families or some form of other residences, go with the market rate, as long as what Council Conti said, there's no low income involved. I think we're okay with that. But we want the open space, we want the water use, we want Fall River to have something nice. We have 2 waterways in this city, and I don't understand why a city this size, with this many people living in it, can't develop 2 waterfronts that potentially could attract people from the outside and bring some more revenue into this city. So to sit there and say, just open it up and let anybody who wants come in with some great idea and force it down our throats, It's not gonna happen. That's not what we want. We want, as taxpayers, to be considered, respected, and let's try to compromise and make it as the best that we can make it. Thank you.
I remember when the administration was here last January that most people wanted the mill completely gone in a park the entire way, and the mayor was very upfront and honest, saying that there's no way that that's going to happen. The city can't afford it. We need the income from the taxes, and we also wouldn't be able to keep up that property of that size as a park. Would it be the best for the neighborhood? Absolutely. But the administration has been very forthcoming that that's not a possibility. But I know, and I assume in the new RFP that the space still is going to be set aside for water access and for the neighborhood to be able to use. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Councilor. That was the point of the survey, so we can actually delineate the area that needs to remain open. And we would like to also even include additional area that would be owned by the developer, but that would be designated for additional open space. So that's what we did in the last RFP. So absolutely, that is the objective, and we will make sure that those elements are incorporated in any new development.
I know that came up actually the meeting after that as well, when the administration was here. There were folks that still wanted to see that all, and it's not a possibility. If we had more funds in the city, I'm sure that everybody would prefer that, but as long as they are designating some space and it's not going to be low-income housing, and to rep Sylvia's comments, and I think if you ask anybody in the city, they don't want to see more low-income housing anywhere. We're inundated with it. That's all I'm going to say on that topic. Does anybody else have, I know there's a gentleman over here that wanted to speak. You just state your name and address for the record, so.
Bill Dushman, Willow Street, Fall River. I have two quick questions. One, does the city have an insurance policy on that building in case of a fire? The second question being, does the city have an insurance policy for surrounding neighborhoods should that building catch on fire, have a bad day, wind, and everything else? Is the city prepared to pay the homeowners?
The city is self-insured, which means that if there's any loss, the city would absorb. Actually, I stand corrected. We do have a policy, but I'm not sure that the value that's been added here is really part of that policy. So I will double check on that for you.
You're saying
We do have property,
here.
we do have property insurance, but I'm not sure that this property, because it's a tax possession, is included. I will double check.
I'm talking about the houses in close proximity.
Yes, no, obviously, we can't insure your private properties, but residents, if they felt that the fire was a result of negligence or some sort of failure to respond on the part of the community, then we would have an opportunity to file a claim against the city for any damages. But again, I'll be clear with you, the only way that there would be a recovery in that kind of an instance was if it was determined that the city was somehow negligent and or had in fact failed to do something that caused the loss that ultimately affected the property. So there would have to be a liability and a fault on the part of the city in order for you to successfully recover a claim of that magnitude.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry, so could you state your full address for the record, please?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Your full address.